Gentleman's time's expired. I now recognize the gentleman from Rhode Island, Mr. Magaziner, for 5 minutes of questions.
Madam Secretary, how many United States military veterans have you deported?
So here we are, a congressional hearing. Kristi Noem, the Secretary of Homeland Security, sitting behind the seal of power. And across from her, Congressman Seth Magaziner of Rhode Island, who came armed not with slogans, not with ideology, but with names, faces, and real human stories.
Sir, we have not deported U.S. citizens or military veterans.
I don't believe you served in the military. I haven't either, but I think you and I can agree that as Americans, we owe everything to those who have served our country in uniform, particularly those who have served in combat. Do you agree with that?
Sir, I believe that people that are in this United States that are citizens have legal status here.
Madam Secretary, we are joined on Zoom by a gentleman named Sejun Park. He is a United States Army combat veteran who was shot twice while serving our country in Panama in 1989. Like many veterans, he struggled with PTSD and substance abuse after his service. He was arrested in the 1990s for some minor drug offenses, nothing serious. He never hurt anyone besides himself, and he's been clean and sober for 14 years. He is a combat veteran, a Purple Heart recipient. He has sacrificed more for this country than most people ever have. Earlier this year, you deported him to Korea, a country he hasn't lived in since he was 7 years old. Will you join me in thanking Mr. Park for his service to our country?
Sir, I'm grateful for every single person that has served our country and follows our laws.
Can you please tell Mr. Park why you deported him?
Every one of them needs to be enforced.
But you understand that many veterans struggle with PTSD, many veterans struggle with substance abuse challenges. This man took 2 bullets for our country. You have broad authority, by the way, as Secretary, to issue humanitarian parole, to do deferred action. Will you commit to at least looking at Mr. Park's case to see if you can help him find a pathway back to this country that he sacrificed so much for?
I will absolutely look at his case, but I want you to remember that
Madam Secretary, the man behind you, please stand up, sir. His name is Jim Brown from Troy, Missouri. He is a Navy combat veteran who served our country in the Gulf War. He's married to a woman named Donna, who came to our country legally from Ireland when she was 11 years old. She has lived here for 48 years. Because of you, Jim's wife, Donna, has been in prison for the last 4 months. She did not come here illegally, and she has never committed any crime other than writing 2 bad checks totaling $80 10 years ago. She is currently in prison and facing deportation. Ms. Noem, will you thank Mr. Brown for his service to our country?
Thank you, Mr. Brown, for your service to our country.
Now, what possible explanation can there be for locking up his wife for 4 months when she has committed no crime other than writing a couple of bad checks for $80?
Sir, it is not my prerogative, my latitude, or my job to pick and choose which laws in this country get enforced.
You have broad discretion as the Secretary. You can issue parole, you can do all kinds of things, but you're choosing not to. Will you commit, again, to just reviewing Donna's case and reuniting this combat veteran with his beloved wife, who also loves this country?
I will review the case.
Now, Madam Secretary, you've already heard the story of Lance Corporal Alejandro Barango, the United States Marine veteran who is behind you, who also has 2 brothers who are United States Marines. Will you thank Lance Corporal Barango for his service?
Thank you for your service.
His father, Narcisso Barango, is a landscaper in California who has lived peacefully in our country for 30 years and has no criminal record. Last spring, while he was mowing the lawn at an IHOP, ICE agents tackled him in the street and imprisoned him for weeks. A peaceful, hard-working man who raised 3 sons to be United States Marines. We need men of that character in this country. Again, as Secretary, you have broad discretion. Will you consider Lance Corporal Barango's father for parole in place to stay in our country, owing to the fact that he has contributed to our country by raising 3 United States Marines?
This is an opportunity to remind everybody that every person that's in this country illegally has an opportunity to voluntarily go home and come back the right way.
He raised 3 United States Marines.
We will facilitate that.
He has been living here peacefully, doing his job for 30 years. You have discretion. You are choosing not to use it. Madam Secretary, you promised America that you would go after the worst of the worst. But these people are not the worst of the worst. A Purple Heart recipient, a military spouse, the father of 3 Marines. And it's not just veterans and military families. You are locking up and deporting children with cancer, mothers with babies in the NICU, United States citizens. There are many problems with your leadership, but the biggest problem is this. You don't seem to know how to tell the difference between the good guys and the bad guys. Go after the bad guys. Go after the terrorists. Do not go after veterans, Marines, children,
Gentleman's
United
time's
States
expired.
citizens. I yield back.
Time's expired.
Magaziner starts with a simple question, not a trick question, not a partisan trap. How many U.S. military veterans has your department deported? Noem responds the way bureaucrats always do when they know the answer will hurt them, narrowly, defensively, and technically. She says they don't deport U.S. citizens or military veterans, implying that legal status erases service, sacrifice, and blood spilled for this country. And right away, Magaziner reframes the conversation. He appeals to something deeper than statutes and acronyms, basic moral agreement. That as Americans, we owe an extraordinary debt to those who served, especially in combat. Noem never actually says yes. She pivots to legality. That tells you everything. Then comes Sejun Park. A real person, a U.S. Army combat veteran, shot twice while serving this country, a Purple Heart recipient, a man who came home with PTSD, spiraled like so many veterans do, made mistakes decades ago, cleaned his life up, stayed sober for 14 years, and was still deported to South Korea, a country he hadn't lived in since childhood. Magaziner doesn't yell. He doesn't posture. He asks Noem to do the simplest human thing imaginable, thank the man for his service. She can barely manage even that without caveats. And when Magaziner asks the obvious follow-up, why he was deported, Noem retreats again into process, integrity, enforcement. Words that sound responsible until you realize they're being used to justify exiling a wounded veteran who literally took bullets for the United States. Magaziner reminds her she has discretion, humanitarian parole, deferred action, authority baked directly into her job. She admits she'll look at the case, but immediately adds that programs must have integrity, as if mercy is corruption, as if compassion undermines the law. Then it gets worse. Magaziner asks a man standing behind Noem to rise. Jim Brown, Navy combat veteran, Gulf War. His wife Donna, who came to the U.S. legally as a child, lived here nearly half a century, committed no violent crimes, has been imprisoned for 4 months over 2 bad checks totaling $80 from a decade ago. Let that sink in. 4 months in prison, facing deportation, for $80. Again, Magaziner asks Noem to thank the veteran. She does, robotically. And then he asks the question she cannot answer without revealing the truth. What possible justification exists for this? Noem says it's not her job to pick and choose which laws to enforce. That is simply not true. As Magaziner points out, correctly she has broad discretion. She is choosing not to use it. This is not inevitability. This is policy. This is preference. And when pressed again to simply review the case, to reunite a combat veteran with his wife, Noem once more hides behind procedure. Then comes Lance Corporal Alejandro Barango, a U.S. Marine, 2 brothers also Marines. Magaziner asks Noem to thank him. She does. And then he tells her about Barango's father, Narcisso Barango, a landscaper, 30 years in this country, no criminal record, raised 3 sons who all served as United States Marines. ICE tackled him in the street while he was mowing a lawn. Weeks in detention. Magaziner makes the case plainly. If anyone has earned mercy, if anyone has earned the benefit of discretion, it is this family. Noem's response: self-deport, leave and come back the right way. It's cold, it's dismissive, and it ignores reality, because the system she's defending does not actually allow people like this to come back the right way. That pathway is mostly fictional. And this is where Magaziner lands the plane. Noem promised to go after the worst of the worst. But these are not the worst of the worst. a Purple Heart recipient, a military spouse, the father of 3 Marines, children with cancer, mothers with newborns in NICUs, even U.S. citizens caught in the dragnet. What Magaziner exposes isn't just bad judgment, it's a worldview. One where enforcement matters more than justice, where punishment replaces proportionality, where discretion exists on paper but is never exercised in practice. Here's the part that should haunt everyone who watched this exchange. Kristi Noem wasn't confused. She wasn't unprepared. She wasn't misinformed. She was consistent. Consistently unwilling to acknowledge that leadership requires judgment. Consistently unwilling to admit that law enforcement without humanity becomes cruelty. Consistently unwilling to accept responsibility for choices she very clearly has the power to make. And Seth Magaziner didn't attack her. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't insult her. He did something far more effective. He held up a mirror. A mirror showing what happens when immigration policy is driven by optics instead of ethics. A mirror showing how veterans are praised in speeches and discarded in practice. A mirror showing that law and order becomes an empty slogan when it's applied without mercy, without context, and without courage. What makes this exchange so powerful is that it dismantles a lie we hear constantly, that these outcomes are unavoidable. They are not. They are the result of deliberate choices made by people in power who would rather be seen as tough than be responsible. And when you strip away the talking points, when you strip away the rehearsed lines about integrity and enforcement, what's left is a simple question that Kristi Noem never answered. If the law gives you the power to do the right thing, and you refuse to use it, what exactly are you governing for? Because leadership is not about how rigidly you apply rules. It's about whether you understand when justice demands flexibility. It's about whether service, sacrifice, and humanity actually mean something beyond campaign ads and hearing room platitudes. Seth Magaziner reminded everyone watching that policies are not abstract. They land on real people. And when those people include wounded veterans, military families, and lifelong contributors to this country, indifference becomes indefensible. If this is what going after the worst of the worst looks like, then the definition itself is broken. If you found this breakdown useful, drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear how you saw this exchange. Make sure to like the video, share it so more people see what actually happened in that room, and subscribe for more deep dives like this.